Hi, welcome back to Counterfeit Emotions. I'm Curtis Morley, and I'm an emotionologist. And I'm so grateful that you are joining us each week on this podcast to go on the journey, to explore what's in our hearts, how to deal with life, and most importantly, how to find that one emotion that can't be counterfeited. And today I'm super excited because I have a close personal friend that is joining us on the podcast, Jesse Sitterud. And he is, well, we go back all the way to our childhood. And Jesse is amazing. We're going to talk today about how to break out of the victim mindset and get into a victor mindset, and even one step further. So let's get into it. Jesse, thanks so much for joining us today.
I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah,
Thanks for the invitation.
this is awesome. And like every time I see you, I just smile because because of all the memories and all the fun. And so we grew up in the smallest of towns in little teeny Utah, Ferron.
Yeah.
How would you describe Ferron?
Um,
How would you describe our little
it
hometown?
was an idyllic place to grow up. It's tiny. Two of the things I always say about Ferron is one, there's more cows than there are people. At least there were when I lived
By
there, and I'm
far,
sure there still are. Yeah, I think
by far.
population was probably around 1,800 when you and I grew up, and it's probably more like 1,500 now.
Yeah.
Um, and uh, and then one of the charms about Ferron is I can still go back today. My parents still live there, and um, it feels like nothing's changed, and
Yeah.
and uh, you could truly see all the same houses in the same streets, and almost all the same people, and so just an awesome small tight knit community to grow up in.
Yeah, I think that's a great word for it, is idyllic.
Yeah,
It was so fun.
yeah,
Like I feel like every day in the summer, even not in the summer, was like Tom Sawyer and Huck
yeah,
Finn.
yeah.
Like every day there was an adventure to be
Yep,
had and some place to explore.
yep,
And yeah, that's so fun. And it is small.
yeah.
It's like everybody knew everybody in
Right.
the entire town.
Yep.
You couldn't drive down the street without waving at every single person.
Right.
And
It's true. I think, if someone listening today had heard of Farron, you and I would, if we didn't know that person, we would know their uncle, their aunt, their grandma, their dad, their brother. It's just too small. But it's amazing how many connections I run into that somehow know about or are affiliated with Farron. So
yeah,
it's a fun place.
like who do you?
Very, very commonly, the connection ends up going back to into politics. Why am I forgetting
Mike Mauer?
Mike Mauer, right?
Yeah.
Who's served alongside multiple governors of Utah, and he always gives Farron shout outs. So I'll meet a lot of people, whether it's just conversations on the hill, and as soon as they hear that, they're all able to come back to that, and it's
Yeah.
just funny. It seems like I'll have a client that, oh, well, my brother or my aunt or my grandma or all these things, and then I tie the dots together, and
Yeah.
it was an amazing place. Yeah. Tom Sawyer Huck Finn's a good way to put it. There were there you had to be creative to have some fun, and
Yeah.
most of those statute of limitations have passed that I can tell my parents about now. So it was fun.
All the adventures. It was so fun. So our dads were both like two of the only entrepreneurs in the
Yeah,
town.
right.
And your dad owned the Merc,
Yep.
and my dad owned Morley's Food Town.
Yep.
And because he owned Morley's Food Town and we had 8 kids, we always had a constant supply of toilet paper. And, and so Blaine and Corinne Pugmire and Rochelle and Shane Gentry, we would pretty much every night in the summer go and toilet paper somebody's
Yeah.
house.
I remember you coming to our house because I remember my dad saying, "Hey, we grew up small town. There was a big, I call it a lane. It was more just like a dirt road that ran all the way up from the main road, which is small,
Yeah.
up to our house." And he's like, "Hey, I can see them coming. Here's what I need you to do. I'm going to yell down to you in the basement. You turn on the sprinklers when I say when." I don't know if you were part of that group, but I remember hearing kids yelling as he turned on the sprinklers. So.
Several times, yes.
All right, yeah.
Several times.
Yeah, good times.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And one of my first memories of you, like we grew up in the town. I remember you as just a baby, and then your parents asked me to babysit you.
Yeah.
And so I'm a few years older, and I'm sure your parents had no business asking me to babysit you. but I actually loved it. You and your twin brother
Yep.
Thomas, and it was the best. It was one of my favorite things to do as a kid, was to come over
Yeah.
and have fun with you guys and tell stories
Yep.
and get into that. It was so fun.
I was. I remember those times. You were a great storyteller even then, as probably a adolescent or young teenager. We loved hearing your stories. So
And now we're all grown up,
yep.
and now you're my financial advisor and all of that fun
Right. I
stuff.
just
And
full circle.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's so fun. And the big reason I wanted to have you on today was because in a very real way you changed my life. You changed my life so meaningfully. Ah, here goes the tears already. uh, I'll never forget when we sat down to lunch, and I I was in a rough way. I was in a very rough way, going through divorce, going through some of the biggest pain I've ever felt in my life. And and I remember so clearly just unloading on you. I just was like barfing all over you. Here's my problems, and this is happening to me, and this is happening to me, and this is happening to me. And the way I remember the situation was, you were so kind. And you called a timeout. You're like, Curtis, timeout, timeout. Life doesn't happen to you. Life happens for you. And at first I was convinced you didn't hear all of the litany of problems that was going on in my life. So I'm like, okay, let's start over. All right, Jesse, here we go. Like this and this and this, and each one ended with to me. This is happening to me. This is happening to me. And and you said, Curtis, all these things are for your good. Not just the birthday cakes and butterflies and all the happy things that come along. He didn't say that specifically, but that's what was going through my head, was like, you said all these things. And the pain was so deep. The pain was so hard that at first I was astonished that you were even saying that. At first I'm like, how could you say this with so much pain? And then it just hit me. It just hit me so hard, the truth that you were speaking, that all of it, all of it can be for my good and is for my good. And how do you how do you become the person that is willing to have that conversation with someone?
You know, I remember that conversation really well, and uh, just how much my heart was breaking for everything that you were talking about, and just trying to empathize. And to be honest, those words that came out of my mouth, I'd probably heard them somewhere. I don't think I probably even made them up, but um, just that thought that when um, when I've gone through difficult times, or I've seen many in my family struggle, that we have to remember that we are agents to act, and that we can choose to let those things be for us. And um, and so I went out on a limb and threw that out, and it seemed like a good idea at the time. And I'm glad it hit well. And maybe it wouldn't have been something I said to someone that I didn't uh, care as much about as I do you, and that I had that kind of a relationship, because it could have come across maybe in the wrong way. But there's a lot I have left to learn, but that is a lesson that I feel like I understand pretty deeply, is that life does happen for us, and we just have to let ourselves be humble enough to learn from it and grow from it. And we don't want those things that make that hard. We don't ask for them, but
Yeah,
here's the thing: they come,
they
right? They
do.
they come, and it doesn't matter who we are. We're not above having really difficult things in our life, and so we might as well get better at learning how to let life happen for us.
And where did you learn that lesson?
Yeah, I think
Where did that
that
come into your life?
it's that's a great question. I don't know if I can even pinpoint other than I feel like I especially up to that point in time in my life and continuing always trying to figure out how to just be better, how to self develop, how to get um how to be a better person, how to be a more well-rounded person, and probably somewhere in some book I read something about that in addition to um uh, putting that together with scripture, where the Lord teaches us that he gives us experiences for our good, right? Just recently as I'm studying about the prophet Joseph Smith, and man, if we were sitting at that table, he would have some things to share with us, right? So much so that, Lord, I've been here for 4 months. I can't even stand up straight in this place. Uh, I've tried to do everything you've asked me to do. Could you please take this from me? Um, and the Lord didn't.
He didn't.
and but he did tell him something, and he said, "This is for your good." Uh, and so that was happening for Joseph, not to Joseph. And so I think between learning that lesson and just books and good conversations, that's probably where it came into my head, and I'm glad it popped out of my mouth at the right time to maybe help you a little bit.
It didn't just help a little bit. It literally changed the course of my life. And it was when you said those words, when you said all these things, not just some,
Yeah.
all these things are for your good. That's when it felt like a brick wall just hit me. Just like, oh, is it even possible? Is it even possible that this amount of pain is for my good? And I look back, oh, shoot, that was what, 7 years ago,
Yeah.
something like that. And I look back now and I see so clearly how it was for my good. How we wouldn't be on this podcast, there'd be no Counterfeit Emotions book, there would be no uh, helping men overcome pornography or helping couples rebuild their relationship. There'd be none of that if I didn't go through the pain.
Right.
And it's going to sound crazy, but I'm now, maybe not then, but now I'm so grateful for the pain.
Yeah.
Because it brought me to today. It brought me to this conversation. It brought me to finding a different purpose in life. And yeah, it was like a brick wall when you said all these things, and not just the good things,
Yeah.
not just the happy things, not the birthday cakes and butterflies, all these things, the ones that crush us,
Yeah.
the ones that have us weeping on the kitchen floor. Even those, even those are for our good.
Yeah. It's a universal truth when you really think about it, right? I mean, there's so many evidences that uh in the universe. I was just coming to me this morning, as I did my early morning workout, and it was leg day, and I hate leg day. you know
Isn't leg day the worst?
it's I hate it, but I do it anyway. And I remember this morning doing a heavy squat and then doing some heavy deadlifts, and it hurt. Like my back hurt, my glutes hurt, like actually hurt, not injured, but hurt. And I remember having the thought, why do I do this? No one's making me, there was no trainer standing there. I was working out by myself. No one's making me do this, but this principle, right? That pain, that discomfort is for my good. It's building muscle, it's building longevity, it's building flexibility. It is benefiting me, but I have to go through it, right? And I
Yeah.
have to submit to it. And there's probably lots of other applications if we really look at our lives of the fact that hard things build us, right? And
Yeah.
they happen for us.
Yeah. And after that conversation, after that fateful lunch, I was like, okay, I've got to actually test this. I've got to see if this is true, because it sounded great. It did hit my heart, but I was like, okay, I don't have a belief in this yet. I need to actually see if this is true and if this is universally true.
Yeah.
And so I started researching, and I found this idea of being a victim versus being a victor. And the victim, that that is what the victim says is, why is this happening to me? And the battle cry of the victim is, that's not fair. That's not fair. And I know I said those words
Right.
when we were having the lunch of this is so unfair. How could that person do this and that person do this? And it's so unfair. And that's like the it's on the flag. They're waving the banner of the victim of, that's not fair.
Yeah.
And and stepping out of that mindset and changing that from the victim mindset to the victor mindset of saying, how is this happening for me? Why is this happening for me? And then taking it one step beyond that and saying, what do I get to learn from this? How am I going to grow from this? How
Right.
is my life going to expand because of this? And then I found one step further. Then I found that it wasn't just a two-step ladder in this transcendence, it was three. And the last step was changing the question one more time. Instead of, how's this happening for me? How can this happen through me?
Mhm.
And changing from victor to vessel, to be able to say, not only why is this for my good, but how can this be for others' good? How can what I'm going through, the pain I'm experiencing, be for the benefit of others? And changing it from victor to the next step on the transcendence ladder of, okay, now I can be a vessel.
Yeah.
Now it's not just about me anymore. It's about, who can I help go through this kind of pain? Who can I help that is hurting right now, that doesn't understand these things like I didn't, that could change their lives too?
Right. That's amazing. Which is what you're doing right now. This is the vessel work, right? Taking
Yeah.
what's broken you down, built you back up, and sharing it through you to others. Which is pretty awesome.
Thanks. And it's been an amazing experience. And uh, going back to the idea of testing this.
Yeah.
So your cousin Pam
Yeah.
and I, we had a great relationship for a while, and it's not like it's bad now, but we were talking about this, and I had shared with her what you had told me, and like, yeah, I want to test this. I really want to try this out. And so the very next day, I was on my daily run, and from my house to the pond, it's almost exactly a mile. Like,
Okay.
from my front door to where there's a little hill that rolls down to the pond is the mile mark. Like, I can see the little, place on the asphalt where the mile mark is. And right before that is a waterfall. And it's this beautiful waterfall. It looks like a fairy tale. Like,
Yeah.
whoever's Eagle project was this waterfall, thank you. Like, I don't know who it was, but it's gorgeous. And it has this waterfall and then these stone steps that go down right next to the side of the waterfall. And so I'm running along this day, and I was going down the trail, and my legs felt like wooden stumps. I was like, donk, 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 donk. And I felt like I had no energy. I'm like, oh, this is such a miserable run. And I got to the waterfall. And truth be told, I say I'm a runner, but like, the truth is, I'm a photographer. I'm like, oh, that's cool. Oh, look at that. And I'm pulling out
A
my camera.
photographer. Okay.
Yeah, I'm a photographer. And so I'm taking pictures of stuff. So I get to the waterfall right before the mile mark. And I'm just like, I am not feeling it today. And I'm like, what? I'm going to go take pictures of the waterfall. So I kind of walk down the stone steps, and I get to this place where I can kind of reach over, but I had to lean into this bush. Had to lean into this kind of little spiky bush. So I lean over and I'm taking a picture of the waterfall, and I'm like, ah, that kind of hurts. That's kind of painful. And I take another picture and I pull away from the bush, and I realize the bush is still poking into me. And I look down, and on my knee, it wasn't a bush, it was a wasp. And I watched as the stinger pulled out and went in for a second dive. And I start jumping around and I'm swatting my leg, and I say the words, "Why did you do that to me, you stupid bee?" It was wasp. It's like, "Why did you do that to me, you stupid bee?" And instantly I caught it, because I just had the conversation about our
Yeah.
conversation with Pam, and I caught it and I was like, "Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Time out. Okay, I'm going to test this. I'm going to test this. This really hurts. There is a lot of pain." And as I was swatting the wasp away, it got me a third time. So I have 3 massive welts in the side of my knee, and, great big welts, incredibly painful. And I'm like, okay, what would the victim do? The victim would, hang his head, grumble the entire mile back, just walk home and like, "Oh, stupid bee ruined my run," and probably sat on the couch and turned on Netflix, and and just be like, "Ugh, grumble, grumble." And and I was like, "Wait a minute. Okay, I'm gonna test this out. I'm gonna see if Jesse's right on this." And so I was like, "How is this happening for me?" And I realized, I was like, wait a minute. I just had a really clunky, slow, no energy mile. And my mile, it was 8:33. And I'm like, I just got filled with super chemicals that are just coursing through my veins right now. I'm like, this is crazy amount of energy that I've got right now. And I'm like, let's go. So I took off down the hill and I ran around the pond for another mile with, I'm sure, the cheesiest grin on my face. I'm like, yeah, just going. And people were looking at me like, who is this guy? But I was sprinting. I felt like Usain Bolt sprinting around this pond. And my second mile went from an 8:33 down to 6:22,
Well,
and I felt fantastic. I didn't feel like wooden legs. I didn't feel like, this horrible experience. It was just fun. And I realized the pain hadn't gone away. The pain was still there. I still had 3 massive welts on the side of my knee. But I chose to ask that simple question. How is this happening for me? I chose that. And I tested your theory. I guess it's God's theory.
yep, that's right.
But I tested God's theory that you shared with me. And it was amazing, because I found joy. I found excitement. I found energy. I found all of this in the pain. And my mile time, like, nothing else changed. I didn't get super shoes. I didn't, have stronger muscles. It was just a decision. Am I going to be a victim, or am I going to be a victor? And that victim would have grumbled, went home, cursed out that bee, watched Netflix, probably had way too much ice cream, and and that would have been it. But instead, I went home and I wrote an article that was accepted by Forbes magazine, and on this experience and on the idea of going from victim to victor and to vessel. And last I checked, there were 72,000 people that have read that. And that one change, that one question changed it from a horrible, miserable experience to something that not only changed the run, but then it changed other people's lives. And because of that Forbes article, I've been booked to speak at multiple locations, for large organizations, and been able to help them too, because of that one question. how is this happening for me?
That's awesome. Well, I think I'm gonna go find some wasps today to bring with me for my next leg day. Right? I mean, that's my takeaway. If I can get a little sting, I can just knock those squats and deadlifts out.
That adrenaline, it's just amazing what
I
happens.
I do think that's amazing. I think it's fascinating to think of as you talk about that. If you're to talk about the skeptic or the devil's advocate, right? That could so easily say back to that, well, Curtis, I mean, you're saying you had all this energy, like you just thought you did. And you go, yeah, exactly. Right? Like
Yeah.
that's where the mindset is. You get to decide, okay, that happened. I've got energy. I might as well go with it. Yeah, that was just a thought, but a thought you decided to hold on to and let work for you, as opposed to that natural consequence that happened and you could have just let it work against you. So I think that's pretty fascinating.
Yeah, it was so powerful.
It's awesome.
It was so powerful just to you're exactly right. The only thing that changed the experience from being something miserable to being something amazing was that one thought, is how is this happening for me?
Right.
And tapping into the power of that. And with that, the thing I found, you actually said the word earlier, there were two pieces that I found inside of that question. One is gratitude, and the other is humility and surrender. And when I asked the question, how is it happening for me? All of a sudden, it doesn't become this burden, this trial, this horrible, it becomes a gift that all these things, even the bee stings, even a divorce, even all of the hard things that have gone through life can actually be a gift for my good. And that one thought changed so many things. 72,000 people reading an article, being booked for speech, like all of this because I just changed the question.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. So I know you live this in your life. Have you experienced times where you've had to ask that question yourself?
Yeah. Yeah. Many times. Uh, and I think, and this, right? Having taught this, that oftentimes the fallacy of the reader or the listener is, oh, this guy wrote a book, this guy gave a talk, he must be perfect at this, right?
Oh yeah.
And you realize, no, what I've done is had more trial and error than most of you, right? And that's how I've come to figure it out. Um, but yeah, I right now, I mean, there's some situations in my life right now. I mean, there was a major one yesterday where there were some moments of self-pity of man, this is right now
Mm,
I have so much going on. This is not great timing for this, and this heavy feeling, and remembering, you know what, this is gonna be okay. I'm gonna come out better. This is for me, and doesn't mean it's not gonna be hard, and it doesn't mean it's not gonna be painful. As a matter of fact, it will be, but I'm going to choose to come out of this side a better Jesse than I went into it. And so, yes, I mean, as of recent of yesterday,
mm,
and waking up this morning, to be honest, and that problem is still sitting there. And I'll be frank. When I woke up this morning, there was this, oh, like almost, I could feel it in my gut, like,
mm.
oh, and then that thought process was, you know what? These things haven't killed me yet, and they're here for my good. We're going to
Yeah.
push. And it was just it was just minute, right? But it got me out of bed and onto the next thing and onto the next. And here we are going, all right, we can do this. Um, so yeah, I think it's just that constant reminder. And as you found, the more you train yourself to think that way, it starts to become your natural response. But I think anyone can train themselves to start asking that question, and then they certainly someone can do the research that you've done and test it, but I'm also a big fan of not recreating the wheel. They've got your system, they've got your book, they've got the podcast. Learn from a couple of guys who've had to figure this out and let life happen for you. So, yeah, still getting better and better at it, but it's been powerful. My wife's a great example of it. She's one that's
Oh yeah.
I probably learned it from her through osmosis. I probably watched her do it long enough
Yeah.
that the words came to my head, and then I took the credit for this idea. But it was probably my wife.
Isn't that always the
Yeah,
case?
yeah, right.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What does she do? What is she?
She's amazing. Like the if I've always said I'm not big on on our the way that our country is big on going and setting up a camera at someone's house and just watching this virtual family live, and it's not real, right? But I'm
Yeah.
like, if you could set one up around my wife, it'd be pretty awesome, because the amount of
A reality show.
yes, just the amount of just golden nuggets that come out of her mouth to our kids. I mean, she is constantly, and I mean, like, this is multiple times a day, spitting out quotes, ideas, systems, processes that, like, there's no way that some of those aren't going to stick with my kids, because I've watched some of them. They'll say something and they go, I'm like, okay, you got this, right? There was for 3 straight. We always have a family motto, and it'll change usually every year. But we kept one for 3 years straight because we just liked it that much, and it was what you focus on grows. And my kids could tell you that if you asked them, hey, what's been the most prevalent motto in your house, they would, all 5 of them would say, what you focus on grows. But that came from my wife, and to be honest with you, it's congruent with what we're talking about. And the idea was, guys, if you focus on the problem, that problem is just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger, right?
Yeah.
Have you ever held your thumb up to the sun, and your thumb looks like it's bigger than the sun? It'll cover it up.
Yeah.
And you're focusing on your thumb, right? Your thumb is not bigger than the sun, but your focus is making that thumb a lot bigger than it is, right? And so if you focus on that problem, it just gets bigger. But if you focus instead on what is the solution, what is the growth opportunity, what am I supposed to learn, well, those things will grow too. They become more and more prevalent in our minds, in our sight. We're going to notice those things and see those things because of the focus. So anyway, my wife's just been really great at, and I've watched her go through some really tough things. Even before we were married, there were some really difficult things that her family went through. She lost her brother when she was 9, and he was 14, almost 15, in a car accident. And it was just him that was killed. And she remembers everything about that day. She remembers what she was wearing. She remembers how she thought, well, what if I would have done this or this or this, and he would have come home instead. But I've watched what that awful situation has done to strengthen her and the rest of my in-laws. They've let life happen for them, and it doesn't mean it wasn't really hard, and still is, but they're better people because of how they chose to accept that challenge. They're vessels. They talk about it. They teach about it. I watched her and others lose family members to suicide and just difficult things. And it's just inspiring to see people who really understand that that we can still find, and that we should find, joy and peace amidst the difficulties of life. But that's because we're allowing life to make us better and not to drown us.
I love how you said that. Amidst, it's, I always thought, my whole life, I always thought there's this big wall.
Yeah.
You got pain, you got joy, and they're completely exclusive. And it's not true.
Right.
We get to choose which side of the wall we're going to put our pain on. We can bury it under the sludge and tar of misery. And the interesting thing about pain is that pain is not meant to be held. It's meant to be felt. and it's meant to come into us, move us to action, and then be done. It's done its job once it gets us to move to action. But when we cover it with the slime and tar of misery, which is blame and shame, those are the two ingredients of misery. When we trap that pain, then it just cycles inside of us, and the pain just goes on and on and on because it can't do its job and move
Right.
through. It just cycles inside. And it's not until we break that covering, that tar, that shell away, that the pain can flow, and it can move us to find purpose in our pain. It can move us to surrender to God and say, okay, I'm going to actually believe that you love me enough to give me this pain. And when we do that, there's so much gratitude. There's so much humility to be able to say, this is actually a gift.
Yeah.
And if you would have told me that before we went to lunch, I'd be like, you are crazy. you are insane. But now I see it. Now I see the gift. And I think that's one of the most powerful things about this, is that it changes into gratitude. When you ask that question of for me, it says, oh, if it's for me, it has to be a gift. And if it's a gift, I'm so grateful for the gifts in my life. And gratitude is alchemy. It can change the
Yeah.
the lead of any situation into gold. And when we see it that way, that, hey, this bee stung me, what a gift. Like, I know that sounds crazy, but it was the gift of adrenaline. It was the
Right.
gift of being able to change that mindset. It was a gift. And I've had people challenge me on this. They're like, yeah, bee sting. Okay, Curtis, come on. Bee sting, that's so small. Let's talk about something real. And I look at like Viktor Frankl
Yeah.
in the Auschwitz concentration camps of Nazi Germany, and how in the worst conditions, where his daily rations was a small piece of bread and what they called soup, which was basically water, and if they got a pea, they were ecstatic because there was a single pea in this little bowl of soup. That was their day, being beaten, living in flea and tick infested barracks, watching people die in front of them. And in that situation, he said that the last of human freedoms is the ability to choose our actions and our attitudes in any given set of circumstances. Any. And he talks about how it's freedom to be able to choose, what am I going to do with this that's happening around me? What am I going to do with this? I get to choose my attitude and actions. I don't know a worse scenario than Auschwitz concentration camp. I can't think of one. And even then, he could say, how is this happening for me?
Yeah. Yeah.
Even then.
I love that. I think that just reminded me of I love sports, and my kids have grown up playing sports, and I've been able to coach a lot of their teams, football and baseball mainly. And one of the things that I've always tried to teach the kids, there's been coaches on pretty well every staff I've been on that are better than me at the X's and O's of whatever we're doing, and I recognize that, and I let them use their gift, and I've tried to build men along the way. And one of the things that I say probably too much, they probably are sick of it, but I hope it sticks, is there's only two things you can control, and it's your attitude and your effort, right? Which is exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah, that's
You
what
can't
Viktor
control
Frankl said.
you can't
Yeah.
control how many runs get scored against you. You can't control whether or not their quarterback has a great arm and completes every pass, but you can control your attitude and your effort, and you just need to focus on that. And when you're doing that, you're trusting the process instead of the results. And as we all know, over time, within life, within business, within our spiritual lives, if we'll trust that process and gauge our attitude and effort, we will find the success we're looking for, because we are playing the long game, right?
Mhm.
But it's really easy to focus on those other things. You know, as you're talking about Viktor Frankl in his book, Man's Search for Meaning, I was thinking about Corrie ten Boom and her
Mm,
book, The Hiding Place.
yeah.
And you remember that story where um, her and her sister have that one Bible that's being held in the women's quarters, but they have to hide it because they can't have this. And finally, they figure out they're going to find this, and the only place they could hide it was in a flea infested area, and they would have to go down there and hide. And Corey's coming out of there just bitten with fleas. She's got, thinking about those welts, she's got them everywhere. She said she was, it was painful, it was disgusting. And her sister says, "What a miracle." She says,
The
"The fleas
the
are a miracle."
fleas,
She
yeah.
says, "That's not a miracle." She said, "No, God provided." She said, "No, if God provided, He would have made sure those soldiers, those guards didn't come in." And she said, "No, they won't come in here because of these fleas. God provided." That's exactly life happening for us instead of to us. But it is that focus and that mind shift that we have to look for it, and it's there.
I feel that when you share that, like I feel that so deeply that, yeah, how can you be grateful for a flea infested barracks that you're just covered in bites, and the way they describe it, like in
Yeah,
Corey Ten Boom's description, like layers
yeah,
and layers of fleas. It wasn't just like one or two, it
yeah,
was so thick that they're layers deep. And yet she was grateful. Yet she said, "How is this happening for us?
yeah,
How are the fleas for our good?"
yeah,
Is because the guards wouldn't come and find the Bible. They wouldn't come from her description. They wouldn't come and sexually abuse
yeah,
them and all the other horrible things that were happening. They were actually a gift.
yeah,
And you don't think of, wait, how the fleas,
yeah.
like nasty, yucky, biting fleas? No. But the truth is, yes. It's amazing.
It is.
It's incredible. And it's fun to look at the neuroscience of this as well, because there's a part of the brain, the ACC, the anterior mid-cingulate cortex, that that is actually a fairly newish field of research in
Okay.
neuroscience. And what they found is the ACC will actually physically grow every time we step outside of our comfort zone. Every time we go beyond what we think we can do, it actually grows. And here's what's fascinating. They're now attributing longevity of life to the size of the ACC.
Hmm.
That it is actually the center of the will to live is in this location. And you think about those that did survive the concentration camps, they lived an incredibly long life. You look at the demographic
Right.
across all of them, and this part of our brain says, oh, it says, okay, this really hurts. The bee stung my knee. I'm going to run anyway. Or I hate leg day. I'm going to do leg day anyway. And we see pain, and pain is really on a spectrum. On the far end is extreme physical or emotional or mental pain. On the other side is discomfort.
Right.
And pain, it goes anywhere along that line. But anytime we're willing to say, okay, I accept the pain. I'm willing to accept this, and I'm going to step one footprint outside of my comfort zone. Your ACC lights up,
Yeah.
and it's like, okay, time to grow.
Yeah.
Time to grow. Whereas if we just say, "Oh, the bee stung me, hate this, I'm going to complain and grumble," it actually doesn't grow. And it's tied to longevity of life. It's tied to
Interesting.
this willpower, the seat of willpower in the brain. And it's fascinating because that's all you have to do
Yeah.
is you have to just step one step outside. And here's something crazy. So let's say, what did you lift this morning? Like, what was the amount?
On the deadlift, I had like
Deadlift?
275 on there.
Okay. So if you do 275 every day for a year,
Yeah.
and after a month or two, 275 is no big deal.
Right.
Like you actually get to the point where your muscles are strong
Yep.
enough, your ACC doesn't grow anymore.
Right.
It's not that you do it that same thing over and over again. It's that whatever your comfort zone is and however far that expands, it's one step past that.
Right.
So then you got to go to 280.
Yep.
And then you got to go to 285. Whatever it is that is outside of what you feel comfortable with, that's where it grows. And changing that question of like, okay, this is a gift. This is an amazing place.
Yeah.
That's where we can really find that growth and that strength.
I love that.
Because it says, how is this happening for me? Means, how can I grow from this? How can I learn from this?
Yep.
How can I be a better person, a better father, a better husband? How can I be all of those things because of this? Not in spite,
Yeah,
but because.
That.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
What other great wisdom nuggets do you have for us?
Jeez, you've probably found the one I have.
The one. I guarantee you've got lots.
No, I just think so much of our lives are our choice. One of my mentors, who happens to also be my uncle, Pam's dad, Jay. I remember when he was in a position where he was in charge of a lot of people, and there were some difficult circumstances, and you can't control other people's choices, and he said something to me, and I think I had just graduated from high school, so I'm probably this 18-year-old who thinks I know everything already and knew nothing, and he said, happiness is a choice, and I choose to be happy. And I remember hearing it and thinking, that sounds cool. That's a good quote. Right. And that's been one of those that I've taken over time and tested. And for me, I believe it. Some things are just, going back to your birthday cakes and butterflies, you don't even have to try. Like, that just makes you happy. It makes you smile. It gives, that's easy. It's designed for that. And by the way, those things are great in life, right? Yeah. Like, we all want those. And they are a part of life. But making that conscious choice to be happy has been a game changer for me. And I will tell you that I think mental illness and depression and anxiety and everything that fits into that mental illness box certainly hinders our ability to make that choice. May even make it impossible for a time. I've seen that. Candidly, there's been a short period in my time in life that I lived that and questioned a lot of things. But I'm a believer that we're created in God's image, and He gave us in part His mind, and He's a creator. And if we believe that we're children of God, then we are intended to create. And so we can create our joy and our happiness through our decision, because our minds are powerful. So that's something that served me my entire life, is just choosing happiness, choosing growth, because we don't choose a lot of consequences that just naturally happen to us, right? Some things we do. Sometimes our natural choices have natural consequences, but when other people's actions create really difficult things in our lives that we didn't choose, we still have the ability to choose our attitude, our effort, our mindset, our happiness. And man, that's just something that I want to keep getting better at.
So do you think you can have joy every day?
I do. I think I've had this conversation many times. If you look at marrying the right person, right? There's this idea out there of are there soulmates, and I don't know that I have the answer to that. But what I do think is that the majority of compatible people could be married for a very long time if they're both willing to work at it, right? However, And I remember hearing this from someone that was older and wiser than me. Choose wisely, because some choices in a spouse you're going to have to work a lot harder than you might with someone more compatible. And I think it is that way with joy, finding that every day. Certain days, we're going to have to look a little harder and work a lot harder to find that joy, because it was just, by all worldly means, a really crappy day. But if we look hard enough, we'll find the joy. And then there are other days where it's just, wow, everything, I hit every green light. Right? I found it on sale in the aisle I was looking for it. Everything just lines up, and you know what? It's easy to find happiness and joy, but I believe we can find it every day. We just have to be willing to put the effort in to look a little harder and look underneath that floor for the fleas sometimes on those days.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I truly believe that too. And I don't know that I did before. Actually, I know I didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do believe that joy is a decision. That joy is a decision we can make every day. And joy doesn't mean absence of pain.
Right.
It doesn't mean life's easy. In fact, I would argue it's actually the opposite. That true joy comes in the struggle. True joy is part of the struggle. And that when we connect to God, when we connect to Christ in the struggle, that's where we find true joy. That's where we find the strength that we don't think we have.
Right.
Even the strength just to make the decision. That's where we find true joy. And I do believe we can have that every day, regardless of our circumstances, regardless of the pain. That joy is a choice, and the choice is to connect with God in our pain, to lay our pain down at the feet of Christ. And in order to do that, we have to first pick it up. We have to be willing to look at it and stop distracting and numbing and escaping. We have to be able to say, okay, here it is, and it hurts. And now I'm going to put it at his feet. And that's where we find joy. And I do believe we can find that every day. But we have to be willing to surrender to him. And that's where we find it.
Love that.
That's awesome. Jesse, I love you, brother.
Love you too, Curtis.
I'm so grateful for you. And along this journey, there's one emotion that can't be counterfeited, and that's peace. And it fits right along with joy. And where does Jesse Sitterud find peace?
Ultimately, I find peace in my Savior, Jesus Christ. He is the source of peace, and that's where I turn. Through him, as a vessel, I find peace in my family, in my wife, in my children, in my church, in relationships. But ultimately, my true peace comes in my Savior and my Father in heaven.
Thank you.
Love you, brother.
Love you, Jesse. Thank you guys for joining us on this episode of Counterfeit Emotions. If you found the podcast useful, if you find that it helps you in your everyday life and your struggle through pain, please like and subscribe, because that gives us the ability to share it with more people and to help them along the journey as well, to find that one emotion that can't be counterfeited, and that's peace. Until next week.